He's like, well, if my mom had balls, she would be my dad.
He's always like, WTF, mate? Saturdays are for competition again.
He was 40 points back.
Wakey, wakey, Lando. Wakey, wakey. Look at that gap.
Without Kimi Antonelli, Max wins the championship.
That's like something you'd see in the F1 movie. Is this the world champion hotline? Lando had to win his first against Max. Formula One fans, welcome to the Tyred Boys podcast. I'm your host, Justin.
And I'm Aaron. Welcome back, everyone. We've got the British Grand Prix to go over today. And so with that, there's a ton to get into. We had F1 Academy, Formula 3, Formula 2, and of course, Formula 1. But Justin, it's good to see you. I'm excited to talk about all that we had going on in Silverstone.
Yeah, in the summer, races coming thick and fast. I won't take up too much time at the front. Like you said, we have a lot of racing to go through overall. A lot of decent racing, I would say, as well. So yeah, Aaron, why don't you just start us off with the quick hitters?
Will do. And the biggest quick hitter that we have today is the announcement from Arrow McLaren in the IndyCar series that they will not be moving forward with their two of their current drivers, Nolan Siegel and Christian Lundgaard, who's P3 in the standings at the moment for next season, because they've been able to sign Scott Dixon and Felix Rosenqvist. So Scott Dixon, 6-time IndyCar champion, Felix Rosenqvist, this year's Indy 500 winner. So the two of them joining Pato O'Ward to make an extremely strong lineup there at Arrow McLaren for the 2027 season.
Maybe reaching and putting you on the spot. Does Scott Dixon have 2 Indy 500 wins?
I do not know off the top of my head, but let me do a little research.
Yeah, because I'm not sure who all like the recent years winners are. 100%. Okay, but he's won one
back
time.
In 2008.
Okay, gotcha. So I didn't overshoot too much, but yeah, imagining the second.
Yeah, and one of the reasons this is so crazy is that Scott Dixon has been with Chip Ganassi Racing for a very, very long time. He has 59 career IndyCar race wins. I believe he is by far has the most races with a single team in IndyCar history. So he's been around for a very, very long time, since 2003. So 23 years of racing in the IndyCar series. So it's a pretty massive shakeup over in IndyCar's sort of silly season, where they had a lot of contracts that were going to be up at the end of this year. And so some of these dominoes starting to fall with their lineups.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that came up, and this was via Will Buxton's commentary on socials, but the angle that Zach Brown is trying to put together under the McLaren umbrella a Triple Crown winning motorsports team, and that is again like an umbrella term to factor in across all of the racing series that he's involved in. And that knocked me right on down to the ground. I was like, well, okay, so that means we are in an era then where the Triple Crown is no longer for drivers, it's for team owners, because we're not in a position where people are cross format anymore.
Yeah, I guess there is the potential of some driver coming up through and really like wanting that. You could have someone who's just maybe a little like Max, where they want to race in other series, but they end up being drawn to that IndyCar, Formula One, and then like 24-hour Le Mans kind of racing. So there is a cool opportunity for that. But at the same time, like, I had never really thought of it that way, because I was like, these are technically like different teams. Like it's not like Aaron McLaren IndyCar and Formula One McLaren's like teams have any sort of crossover. They're just both owned by the McLaren organization. So that's where I had kind of thought, well, a driver hopping around to these different series um, is a bit more what I had thought of for the Triple Crown versus one team kind of collecting all the Infinity Stones there.
Well, and I think for a long time that has been the angle for the Triple Crown, but yeah, bro, I won't say any more. You just nailed it. That's the funniest thing to say on that topic.
Yeah, because I mean, if a driver's doing it, it's not like it's not like Fernando Alonso has to win uh, Monaco with McLaren and then win the Indy 500 with McLaren and then win Le Mans in a McLaren. Like they have the ability to have more flexibility there, I guess, as the driver. But it is, yeah, an interesting thing, especially as just kind of the CEO, not necessarily um, someone who's actually like in there with the racing or something, designing the cars at this point or anything. But yeah, being at the helm, like the guy who leads them to that, I guess in this era of racing is still something to stand on, just not the same level in my mind as a driver doing it.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I just thought there was a like a really interesting angle that that Will Buxton presented, so I just wanted to kind of bring that up because yeah, that kind of gave me a different paradigm of thought as well. So yeah, just wanted to get your thoughts in that regard.
Well,
And yeah,
and
we go ahead.
to ask you, do you think that like he's saying that because Zach Brown has like said he wants to get the triple crown for McLaren, or is he just like
That
associating
was
it
the
like,
No, that was the way
oh,
that it
that
was
was
framed. Is
okay,
that it's
gotcha.
like that's like what Zach
He
Brown
what
wants to
he's
do.
striving for. Okay,
Yes. Yes, which
gotcha.
is a very like different angle.
Yeah,
Yes, he is
100%.
trying to
So
collect the Infinity Stones.
okay.
If McLaren is winning that event, he is then going to claim the triple crown.
Yeah, because I was just thinking of it as like, oh, maybe he's saying that because they have these other couple things checked off, and they just got the previous Indy 500 winner with Rosenquist, so they're like it's right there with the freshest like winner kind of thing. I wasn't sure, but yeah, that um hey, if you do it, good for you, Zach. If that's what pushes you forward and everything, then have at it. Whatever people want to motivate them.
And here you go. I'll just throw it in. Obviously, the driver he needs to complete that, Kyle Larson. Okay, we can move on.
Of course. So then, yeah, moving on towards Formula One, we had some silliness a little bit with the Silverstone Drivers Parade, which I found pretty amusing. I know you were giggling at some of the videos as well, but watching these mini cars, one just like the battling between each other where they're actually physically trying to push the other cars from their little Lego go-kart backwards to kind of propel them forward and all. And then all of the cars getting beached in the gravel. Fernando Alonso taking most likely what will be his only win of the season there in the drivers parade race. It was a light way to kick off the weekend there.
Yeah, and I just think it's fun sometimes to see a different side of these drivers. Like they don't always have these type of events at every race. This is like a big sponsorship type event. So yeah, it's just fun to see these drivers in a very different light than the helmet on, you know, like about to set a qualifying lap mentality, where you know we just often see them, or you know in like post race interviews, these types of things. So yeah, it's just great to see them literally just goofing off, and it was funny they gave MBS like not really like a Lego car. It was a very like villain looking car in relation to all the like the very colorful Legos. So I just thought that was a funny angle. Whether that was intended or not, his may have his may have been supposed to be like a limousine or something a little more luxurious or whatever. But yeah, overall fun event. I definitely enjoyed it.
And
The
he got
them
beached
getting all
too, didn't
beached.
he?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
he followed them in. He thought he was doing something slick.
He's like, oh, if they're gonna do it, I've got to. I can't be
Right.
Mr. Rules, even though I'm literally Mr. Rules.
Literally Mr. Rules. Like it's so funny. Then 15 of them just all get stuck in the gravel trap.
Yeah, watching Max and Checo were just like cruising next to each other, like chatting the whole time. It was yeah, just a fun way to kick off the weekend. And like you said, seeing the drivers kind of in a different environment there than we typically get to see them. So a fun little event, but. That is all that I had for the quick hitters today, since we do have a lot to get into here. But if you're listening along, you're here with us, please don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, keep an eye out for any content that we have coming out there. As Justin likes to remind everyone, we are here after every Formula One race weekend. But check out our link tree. We have TikToks that come out after the podcast. We are doing a bit more of that content as well. So we appreciate all of you taking the time to be here with us.
Yeah, appreciate that one, Aaron. Thanks for listening. So, for the British Grand Prix, we have a bunch of drivers who would call it their home race. We have a bunch of teams that would call it their home race. But I was trying to find an angle that I think would be interesting. It's really tough to basically just decide what angle you want to come at the Silverstone Grand Prix from. It's one of the most historic races on the circuit. Some would argue it is the most historic circuit and Grand Prix on the calendar. So basically, any way you want to come at it, you'd probably be having a fun and interesting way to look at the British Grand Prix. But for today's episode, I wanted to cover Arvid Lindblad. He's our rookie driver on the grid. He's a British Swedish national, but he races under the British flag. So I thought it'd be interesting to just talk a little bit about Arvid Lindblad and just get a sense of who he is, because it seems like he may be a driver that we begin talking about often. He was someone that came up during a few of our episodes in 2024 and 2025, if you've been following along with us. So yeah, I just thought it'd be a nice time to get like a better look at who Arvid Lindblad is as a racer and kind of where he's come in that regard.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing more about it. I know a little about him obviously from seeing him come up through, but yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, so Arvid Lindblad, like I said, I believe Swedish and British national, racing under the British flag. He begins karting at age 7, where he won a bunch of continental titles. There's a myriad of different karting leagues and junior categories that you make your way through. He was able to win several of those titles. Carded for many years. Arvid Lindblad then joined the Red Bull Junior program, in which they sponsored him for his races in the 2021 series, or his 2021 races specifically, and this was still his karting races. He graduated to regional Formula 4 in 2022. So these are what you consider the junior formulas. These are regional series, but they are still single seater open wheel racing. It's basically the national level before you would get to something like an FIA Formula 3.
Mhm.
Okay, so graduates to Formula 4 in 2022, and from now on he's fully under the Red Bull program. He has their like scouting team just keeping an eye on him and helping to like manage decisions throughout his career. He finishes third overall in his F4 season. He was with Prima Racing. So in his Formula 4 season, his big kind of breakthrough race was Macau. So he wins Macau, and that's what kind of gets him in the door, gets him to have conversations in in for a Formula 3 seat. So he ends up being able to race Formula 3 in 2024, where he is able to achieve a couple of wins, and he places fourth overall. Couple interesting things about his Formula 3 season in 2024. He was the first ever driver to do the double at Silverstone in Formula 3. So that was huge, where one of the races gets the tire strategy where he changes to slicks on a drying track. And that was kind of the sauce. Ends up having a bunch of pace, does the double, first time for anybody in Formula 2. And once you do something like this, it's like Sauron's eye. Just he like every team, every scouting director, they're just locked on you from here on. So then that same year, 2024, is when he gets his Formula One drive or like test drive basically. So they Red Bull was doing a show run in oh man, I can't remember what city. I want to say it was like Austin, Texas or something. It doesn't really
Hmm.
matter. But he does a show run in September with Red Bull, and then 5 months later gets his maiden private test, and he tests alongside Ayumu Iwasa. So like 2024 was a massive, massive year for Arvid Lindblad in that regard. So now 2025, this is where he basically like will have jumped onto the Tyred Boys radar. This is where we started covering him. I went back and looked through some of our show notes for 2024. He came up a couple of times, but he was basically just kind of like a side note or a cliff note. And it wasn't until basically back half of 2025 that we really started covering him. However, 2025, huge year for Arvid Lindblad. He wins his Formula Regional Oceania title that he was racing with a team called M2. So he chose to race Formula Regional just as a setup for his F2 season. He was like, I want to stay fresh, I want to stay prepared, so I'm going to go race this series and we'll see how well we can do. He ends up winning that title, and I think that's what cascades a bunch of the racing seats that he gets moving forward, advances to Formula 2. This is before that win, though. He already had the F2 seat before the Oceania win. I believe it's the Oceania title that inclines Red Bull and the Racing Bulls to consider him for the 2026 seat when the regulations come along. Because if you look at his Formula 2 season, it's like it's it's not great. Like it's not great. It's not stellar by any means. The obvious standouts are Hadjar, Bortoletto, and others that were on that grid alongside of him. And that's what tells me he already had the considerations before this season, and that was basically just a formality. So races Formula 2 with Campos in 2025. In my mind, his most notable race in 25 was Hungary. It was kind of that period. It was basically like the summer for Arvid Lindblad that I think he had some of his best performances. Maybe not his best results, but his best performances in the race. And then, like we had talked about, he gets the call up to the Racing Bulls to race alongside Liam Lawson for the new regulations coming in 2026. And overall, I think you would say you are pretty impressed, or I think one could say that they'd be pretty impressed with an Arvid Lindblad with how he's done in 2026. However, that's not what's in question here. I just wanted to give a little bit of history, give a little bit of kind of where he's come from in his Formula racing, what his kind of junior racing career has been like. Because yeah, it was really interesting to learn about Arvid Lindblad here. Because like I said, his home race is the British Grand Prix, and as we've seen, you know, he kind of does well at Silverstone. So I thought that'd be a fitting angle to come at this to come at this segment from.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially for his first home Grand Prix, like you said, with the British Grand Prix, We have a number of British drivers across the grid that we've kind of gotten to know over the years. So it's nice to get to learn a little bit more of his background and see where he was coming up through. Like you said, I think once he was kind of into the Red Bull Academy program, that propelled him forward in getting those test opportunities. I'm sure there was some other behind the scenes sim tests and this and that they do and go through and all. But yeah, him getting that opportunity is impressive, and him doing that Formula series with the Formula Oceania and all to kind of continue just getting experience and everything is also just an impressive thing for a driver to do and to put their best foot forward by showing they're willing to kind of grind to get where they want to go. I'm sure all these drivers do those kinds of things, but that's yeah, definitely a good kudos to him.
Yeah, Arvid Lindblad, definitely a rookie who is, in my opinion, overperforming the average of rookies that I've seen come onto the grid. So yeah, definitely an interesting one to follow, interesting one to learn about. However, we do still have a lot of racing to get into, like we had talked about, where Arvid Lindblad is coming from. Formula 2 and Formula 3. Let's get into some of the feeder series, although maybe a good idea to start with F1 Academy.
Yeah, we can jump into that here. And this is only our third F1 Academy race weekend that we've had. We had China at Shanghai, then we had Montreal in Canada, now Silverstone here. And so looking across the weekend, one of the biggest highlights was Kiara Batigue, who was one of the wild card drivers coming in just for this race weekend with High Tech. Um, as we've mentioned before, talking about F1 Academy, a lot of times those wild card drivers end up being main drivers for teams the upcoming season. So seeing her go out there and not just go out and put a drive in, but qualify on pole position, um, and have really a solid race weekend as a whole, was a huge highlight to me, and something that I will look forward to hopefully seeing for next year, if Kiara can get a drive on the Formula F1 Academy grid.
Yeah, and it's such a different experience of the that wild card designation, because I bet if you go back at least in the last 2 years of F1 Academy, I have memories of, I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'm gonna say like at least five wild card drivers who just like crashed out in their
Mm-hmm.
like showcase race, basically, like you could call it. I'm pretty sure like at least four or five of them just wrecked or like had something abysmal happen. So this is definitely the other side of that coin,
Mm-hmm.
where you're just coming in and you're just having like a make a wish weekend, right? Where it's just like, hey, like just like kind of drive slow, like let her, you know what I mean? Where it's like that
Well,
that
yeah,
just doesn't
you're
happen. But she was out there battling. I'm not
Oh
saying
no,
that
I know what
people
you
were
mean.
slowing
But
down. You
but they are like they're not accustomed to the cars, to the race weekend setup, to the teams and all. So they are like on the back foot coming in as the wild card entries. So it's understandable why so many of them have struggled in previous instances.
for sure. But could continue. You were making some points.
Yeah, well, just for her race weekend as a whole, she had some really nice moves. Looking at the reverse grid race, she had a nice setup and dummy move on Alba Larson to move up into the points and get into P8 for the reverse grid race, where she ended up finishing, of course, being on pole for the feature race. Had a really, really strong drive there as well, finished P2. So, first wild card driver to end up on the podium in F1 Academy. Um, so, super impressive from her on the drives. But looking at kind of our main contenders, there was a lot of intrigue and excitement with the kind of top drivers with Felbermeyer and Palmofsky. Emma Felbermeyer taking the reverse grid win after having a little bit of a tougher qualifying performance there it, over the weekend, but then she did battle up through the grid in the feature race and put the pressure on a little bit for Palmofsky for just keeping that battle as close as she can.
Yeah, and was able to, in to continue talking about Felbermeyer, she was able to defend her P1 position in the first race, because I'm pretty sure throughout the whole race the top four finishers really didn't shift around position at
Yeah.
all. If there was gains or losses, they were mitigated by the end of the race. So yeah, solid, just like start to finish, just drive from Felbermeyer. Nothing bad happened. Kept her nose clean, so I agree with you. Great in that regard. And then yeah, I think the Palmosky weekend is just a great highlight. She drove really well overall. The battle that she did get into, especially with Fatigue. I mean, they were fighting that whole feature race in the
Mhm.
second one. So really exciting stuff to see there. I think the second race had notably more action than the first one did, and especially you get the great drive from Fatigue, where I think that was probably the highlight of the weekend in that regard. Race two, you get some weird shenanigans down the straights too. You have the one driver just like drift into another, take them both out, cause
Mhm.
a serious scrap down the main straight. So kind of a bit of an odd one in that regard. But yeah, I really had fun with the Formula One Academy weekend, and yeah, it seems like Palmofsky may be running away with this one, but I'm curious what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with that. Like, even with Felbermeyer having a pretty strong weekend, she picks up 25 points total between the reverse grid and the feature race. But um, Alicia Palmofsky picks up 28 points and still extends that gap. She's won three of the four uh, feature races that we've had this season, with Montreal having two races there. And she came in second in the the other one at China. So she's just having a pretty phenomenal season thus far, and really hasn't slipped up at all to give the opportunity for anyone to catch up. So I've been really impressed by her, but at the moment it is starting to look like uh, it may be a runaway as we hit this halfway point through the season, but still only 30 points. These with the race weekends having kind of a maximum of 36 points, all it takes is really a couple of um, tough weekends, someone that you don't expect bumping into you and knocking you out, and then all of a sudden we might have a battle on our hands. But for the meantime, Palmofsky's just taking advantage of every opportunity.
Yeah, because I think that would be one, I don't know, maybe criticism that you could have of the formula in general, is kind of the middle of the field has lacking like wheel to wheel skills. It feels like you see more crashes where like drivers are taking each other out. It feels like you have more of them in the midfield of F1 Academy than some of the other junior formulas that we've like exposed ourselves to. I'm curious, do you have that same sense, or do you feel like it's like F3 or something?
No, I do feel that way. I think, but at the same time, this is more, I guess, comparable to Formula 4 than Formula 3 in terms of the cars. They don't have DRS, like all of those
Hmm.
different things. So I'm sure, and I haven't really watched some of these Formula Regional and Formula 4 series. So I would imagine that with younger drivers coming up in those series as well, where the cars are all very similar in terms of their pace and qualities and everything. that it probably is a little more similar to this than what we see in Formula 3 and then of course Formula 2 as we're going up the formulas. Um, this is probably a lot of these drivers' first opportunity in open wheel racing. They maybe have come from karts or like Dorian Penn coming from other race series and everything, driving in GT3 or some of these other non-open wheel racing. So there's going to be a little bit of that, especially for the drivers who it's their first year on the grid. I think late in the season, what I'll be keeping an eye on is these younger drivers who will be around for their second year next year. And seeing how they've kind of progressed with their skills as we're getting later on in the season.
I think that's really reasonable. You do want to, temper those, kind of criticisms, but understand kind of where they are in their racing careers and what these series represent. But yeah, overall, I would say fun weekend for Formula One Academy. I think the wild card weekend was just like a definite highlight. Not something you get to see every day with kind of a young gun out there fighting with the Davids of the grid. So that's or no, it'd be the David fighting with the Goliaths of the grid. That's what you would say. Sorry.
You
That's
saved it. You brought it back.
holy. Formula 3 is a fun series. Let's talk about that.
Sounds good. We of course have been keeping our eye out on the young American Ugo Ugachukwu, who had a really strong weekend here as well in Silverstone. He wins the sprint race here with the reverse grid and everything, but ends up having the largest margin of victory in a Formula 3 race in history with almost 17 second gap by the end of the sprint race. So in even shorter amount of time than he could have had if he was in that position for the feature race. But a very very strong drive from Ugachukwu there in the sprint. Teofil Nile also was one of the drivers that I was kind of watching throughout that race who just kept his tires in really good condition and was making some moves as he was going through towards the end of the sprint.
I'm yeah, both of his races were so much fun to watch, but I'm like frustrated for him where it's like, yo, those Trident cars, just get out of the way. If y'all are
Oh
gonna
yeah.
squabble, that's fine. Just do it behind me, please. But seeing him basically have to put the move on two cars at once in the one race, he gets it done. He gets the same opportunity in the second race and is very, very close from being able to just do the same thing with again. But I'm pretty sure it might have been different drivers in the second race, but same team, the Trident car squabbling at the front. So yeah, I think Tayfield Nile was a for sure highlight of the weekend. His onboard was crazy in both races. How
Mhm.
how tight he was to both in race one. It would have been Stromstead and DePaulo that he was fighting towards the later stage of the race. But yeah, man, he was on fire.
He was, and very fun to watch. Another driver who is, of course, I wanted to note in the sprint race was Yevon David, who we had
Mhm.
mentioned a couple of times previously with some strong drives and moves, even though he wasn't battling quite at the front. Really, really strong drive from him in the sprint race and gets a podium. So, the first Sri Lankan national driver to get a Formula 3 podium. But he had a really amazing defensive drive. Like I said, Ugachukwu was gapping the entire field, and Yevon David was kind of uh, causing a little bit of Teofil Niles headaches there by bottling up the two tridents, but just a really great defensive drive from Yevon David. And so I was very impressed with him in the sprint race.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I loved hearing his onboard radio at the end of the race. It was a quite exasperated. He said, "Oh my God, how did we do that?" And he just kept repeating that to his team. His team was just sending him so much love through the radio. So yeah, that was a definitely fun podium to get to see for the young Sri Lankan. The other angle that like it just made me laugh when I heard it, so I wanted to bring it up here. The commentator for the F3 weekends, he said about the two Trident cars where they were basically just slicing people up together. They were kind of following each other through the front of the grid. He says they appear to be making moves together, and that just cracked me up. I laughed out loud. It's just like that's just something like you would hear in a sci-fi movie, you know, about like the creature, you know, or like the dinosaurs or whatever in Jurassic Park, you know, they appear to be making moves together or whatever. So that just really cracked me up. But yeah, overall that that first race was really something. And we get, like I had said, we get treated to another Teofil Nile performance in the next race.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it doesn't end up panning out for him by the end of the race. He ends up finishing out of the points after having a pretty fun drive to watch and battling for a while. But I mean, just really, really going for it. He's P3 in the standings. And it was just unfortunate that he wasn't able to pick up some additional points there in the feature race for the weekend. The other kind of craziness and chaos that we end up having in the feature race was just a number of post race disqualifications. We have uh, the two of the top three on the podium both get disqualified. DePaulo for Trident, and then Rivera for, I believe it's Campos. Both were disqualified after the race. So a tough way for their weekends to end, and for some of the other drivers like Guadish, who picks up the feature race win after finishing P3. Ugachukwu, who ends up sliding up into the podium positions, and then the pole sitter Freddie Slater on in P2. It was definitely important for them to pick up those points.
You know, definitely would agree. But you know what? They can apply whatever penalties they want. They can disqualify whoever. Teofil Nile, in my fan fiction and in my head canon, he won that race, and that's what I'll submit to Wikipedia for you know, for the facts. So yeah, doesn't really matter. Throw all the penalties you want. Teofil Nile, I think, was the in my opinion, the driver of the weekend, the VIP, if you will, most impact driver. So yeah, I think that's what I would say about that.
Yeah, well, and I would definitely agree. He had such an impressive, like, an aggressive drive. He was really pushing at the end to make up as many places, and um, I just, yeah, definitely agree with you on that. For him having a very strong weekend, and kind of the I'd say the best other than Uguchukwu to keep an eye on. Ugachukwu, of course, getting the win, and the P3 extends his gap by a couple more points in the championship to Freddie Slater. There's still, of course, a few race weekends to go. And with the double races, there's opportunities, but he is not letting that slip away at the moment.
Yeah, and that's a good point to make. Honestly, you feel like the format that Formula 3 and Formula 2 use where they do the reverse grids, it feels like there's more jeopardy on any given weekend. It feels like the switch up of the grids and the different opportunities for points, I feel like makes the series feel like, unless somebody like clinches hella early, but I'm not sure that in my time of watching I've seen that. I don't think I've seen that type of year yet. So
It'd be
yeah, it
tough to
does.
do.
Yeah, well, and
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. It feels like there's a lot of just parity between the drivers and the like top teams, I would say, and that's like very satisfying over the long term.
Yeah, like seeing that a lot of these drivers who are qualifying on pole position for the feature race maybe only pick up 1 or 2 points in the reverse
Hmm.
grid. They're not able to just slice and dice their way up through. They are having to battle and getting stuck sometimes where they're at. So making those feature race points even more important. And then, of course, you have the potential, like in any racing, all it takes is one mishap, and all of a sudden you're losing that opportunity and potentially losing big points. So it's if you can maximize that reverse grid race as well as the feature race, that really does impact a lot with the standings as the season goes.
There you go. You heard it here first. Straight from Aaron. That's how you win F3. It's the
Get
reverse
the most
grid.
points.
Get the most points. Hell yeah. No, that's like, dude, that is like the Jedi level. That is like the Korean level advice, obviously. And that's where we can pick up the Formula 2 conversation in that regard, because that's where Kamara, he does not do great. If he's able to start out front, he's got pace, but we're seeing him struggle when he's starting P9, P10, P12, where compared to Nicholas Solov and Gabriella Mini, he's really fallen off of their kind of their heels. I think he's almost like 30 points back, just kind of on a rough estimate. So yeah, not maximizing the reverse grid races, will leave you hanging back. So yeah, I'm curious where you want to start for the Formula 2 weekend in that regard.
Yeah, well, talking about Kamara, I was, of course, keeping an eye on him throughout the reverse grid sprint race and everything. He qualifies on pole, but he's has some struggles on the weekend, both in the sprint race as well as the feature race with his starts. He dropped a couple of positions early in the sprint race, then has to kind of fight his way back up, only really ends up getting back to his original starting point of P10 there. And then in the feature race, he just struggles off the line and loses positions early, and then ends up kind of getting stuck in a similar spot. So, where we're seeing Gabriele Mini, Nicholas Solov be able to really fight their way up through. And these are two guys who do have more experience in the series than Kamara. But they are both looking really, really competitive, and able to kind of make up those positions when they have a bad qualifying or when they have some sort of issue. They've been able to recover pretty well. And so obviously Kamara has really strong pace, getting the pole position, everything, but uh, there's still a little bit of room to grow for him here, and he's about 45 points off of the lead of Nicholas Solov right now, who is and about 30 points back from Gabriele Mini. So he's not quite as much in the fight, but we're still only about the halfway point in the Formula 2 calendar. So there's still plenty of racing to go. Um, but yeah, looking at the sprint race, Nicholas Solov taking the win with Gabriele Mini on his heels. Um, Really, really strong drive from Solov, and I can see why his name is coming up in some of these conversations for Formula One seats. He is just looking really consistent. And so, what did you think of him and just the sprint race as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, of course, he's the one to watch right now in contention for the win with Gabriella Mini. He's run away from his first contender in Kamara. So yeah, I'm guessing especially after a Silverstone weekend like this. Yeah, I mean he's probably a lot of people's favorites to win the championship right now. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'd say the same. I'm not sure I'd fold on Kamara so easily. But yeah, it'd be really hard to ignore a weekend like this from Solov. Like back to back race sessions were just. I mean, he was electric. There's just no other way to say it.
Yeah, and three in a row now with the feature race. At the Austrian Grand Prix at the Red Bull Ring, he's now three on the jump with the reverse grid is super impressive. Um, so I'm definitely keeping an eye on him because it is one of those things where even though he is getting these wins. That's his, I think, sixth win on the season so far. Gabriele Mini has been right there and is picking up consistent points where he's had a couple of race weekends where he has faltered and not picked up points when he could have. So he's leaving the door open, but his consistency has continued to just improve across the calendar thus far. Um, I also did want to mention Villa Gomez, who keeps kind of popping up in these conversations. Really strong drive from him in the feature race. He had really good pace and solid strategy to kind of go. I believe he did the longer stint at the start and then swapped to the faster tires late in the race to try and run some people down on old tires, and it panned out very well for him to get the P2. So I'm keeping an eye on him as well, just as kind of that outside driver who is continuing to grow in their first year here in Formula Two.
Okay, gotcha. So that's what the radio call was about the yeah, it's when he was approaching in the feature race when he was approaching Kush mining for the overtake. The call was like, for Kush mining, these are the only tires, these are the only tires you have, and Villa Gomez was on the alternate strategy. Okay,
Mm.
now I understand that better. I have a hard time following the tire strategies of the
Yeah,
feeder series because I'm pretty sure it's only
they just have
feature
two.
race Formula 3 that does pit stops, right? Or do they do pit
Or
stops in F2 as well?
So F2 has the feature race pit stops. Formula 3 typically does not, like, they can if something happens, but they typically it's not required. Where in the F2
Right.
feature race there is a required use of both sets of tires. And they only do have two options. So they don't have like a soft, medium, and a hard. They just have a I think it's typically hard and super soft offset.
Hmm.
So yeah, him being able to keep his tires in good condition throughout the race to have that long stint and then make a run there at the end was very impressive. And I was slightly off. He did race last year in Formula Two, so it's his second year here on the Formula Two grid, but he's been improving now over the past couple of race weekends. So we'll see how he continues to go.
Very cool. Yeah, and definitely in the battle for the podium as well, had some significant pace there at the end of the race. So yeah, definitely an enjoyable feature race there from the Formula 2 angle. But yeah, this is just Solov's world, and we just live in it currently. That's just what it feels like right now.
Yeah, and this is actually where I had in my notes about Lindblad doing the double because we see Solov get the opportunity to do that as well here in Formula Two at Silverstone. Kind of funny that it's the same track, but a very strong same track. Red Bull Juniors. There's a lot of things that we're seeing here, but um, at the end of the day, it makes sense why he is kind of one of those top drivers that we're looking at for moving up to the F1 grid.
Well, and it's just that bootstrapping effect because now when we see Solov in Formula One, he's going to get to Silverstone, and he's going to say, "Oh, I love Silverstone so much. You know, I have great memories of 26 doing the double." Like that's just how it bootstraps. We're like everybody loves Silverstone because like epic things happen at Silverstone. So then the drive, you know what I'm saying? And it's
Mhm.
just like, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, the
100%.
drivers are definitely going to have big love for the circuits and the races that they, you know, have like highlight moments or very strong performances for. So yeah, Silverstone, you know, it's been in the history books forever, and yeah, it's not leaving anytime soon. And Solov is just the most recent one to pen his name with a bit of a record or a bit of something special, you could say.
Yeah, and I think it's good, and like we were saying with Lindblad, like having the experience in the lower categories at these circuits does give that extra bit of confidence. We hear even on the broadcast they're talking about certain drivers who might even be rookies being great at Silverstone and things like that. So that confidence and bringing that experience with you, it does help when you have next to none in Formula One. um so yeah, it's very cool to see him kind of add to his legacy there at Silverstone. But we'll go ahead and slide on from Formula 2 into the Formula 1 race weekend here. And so, just initially, were there any notes you wanted to hit on for the different qualifyings or anything, or just jump right into it?
So, just a couple of notes from the practice sessions, and this is for the Formula One sessions of the British Grand Prix. Just want to talk a little bit about the practice sesh because I don't always get both pictures. Sometimes I'll have like a very low resolution angle of like the whole thing, but I don't have any like details. Or I'll have like some weird detail, but like I'll have no sense of what happened. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But here's the tidbit that I'll give you here for this. And remember, and here's the angle. So this is a sprint weekend. So what I was paying attention to in the practice session is how are these teams spending their time during their 1 hour of running? What I found was most of the teams focused on the hard tire running for about 40 minutes or so, or like 45 minutes, depending. Most teams were working on the hard tire running, and what that tells me is they're most worried about the race stints. They're worried about what they're going to find in the sprint race, like the long stint there, and then what they're going to find in the well, I guess you'd call it a
Grand
feature
Prix.
race, whatever,
Yeah.
in the main race on Sunday, what they're going to find, because for Silverstone, a lot of the times the strategy is a one stop where you either do hard to medium or medium to hards, depending. So what you see, and I found this interesting, and this is why I'm telling you, the teams mostly focus on the hard tires, mostly worried about the long runs, and then only in about the final 15 to like 20 minutes or so, depending on the teams, you saw some people swap onto the medium tires. I think it was like three or four runners doing that, but most people swapping to the soft, and then they start putting in the qualifying laps. So I just thought that was a really interesting look at how the teams are spending their time on the whole, because you could see like most teams have decided this is just the optimal way that we're going to go about this, and how they're allocating their time, and kind of what they're working on. But as you see, these practice sessions are so loaded, like where they're trying to get very specific things done in a very short amount of time. They're trying to collect data for this and a little bit of data for that, so they're not like spread too thin, but also so they have some good information for each of the types of sessions that they're going to encounter. So just kind of zooming out on that practice session a little bit, you got to see just a little glimpse into how these teams are thinking about basically just like time allocation.
Yeah, and well, and especially for the hard tires, looking at the practice session info and all, like these guys were doing more than like half race distances in the practice session. They were getting as many laps as they could. Um, Up to I think 32 is the highest that I'm seeing here. No, 33 laps in. So really putting a ton of time down and getting a feel for like how that hard tire stint might go with graining and degradation and everything on the weekend is super valuable. It's so tough with the sprint weekends to just have that 1 hour practice session, which is why it seems like a lot of the drivers in the sprint race, if they're struggling or not in the points, they kind of get relegated into that test session mode, and just collecting data as much as possible.
Yeah, so just something notable from the, condensed weekend, they would call it. And then just an interesting angle about the sprint race and the sprint qualifying session. We don't have to go too heavy on it, but more of just like kind of a general storyline angle. I thought it was crazy how the sprint qualifying, especially that SQ3 and the sprint race itself, it was just a fist fight between Lewis Hamilton and Kimi Antonelli, just like lap after lap, run after run, especially in the qualifying session. I thought that was really fun, where it was, just Lewis and Kimi Antonelli trading times back and forth. So yeah, I found the sprint section of the weekend to be very fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And like seeing Kimmy kind of trying to figure out how best to get by Lewis, like he drove very respectfully and all as he's trying to put pressure on and figure out his way by. But Lewis is Lewis has some experience at Silverstone, so to say the least. And so keeping Kimmy behind for as long as he did was a really really impressive drive from Lewis in that sprint race to make Kimmy figure out how to get by in what seemed to be the faster car this weekend.
Yeah, to a certain degree. And then I just wanted to use a little note about qualifying, just to basically comment kind of where the teams are in relation to each other. So in the qualifying session, the Ferraris and the Mercedes were like a tenth or like 3/10 off of each other during their hot laps. So they're relatively evenly matched in that regard. I think depending on the lap, either car can be top if you're using this Silverstone as like the idyllic race circuit. There's a good amount of high speed, medium speed, and low speed. I think where the Ferrari specifically had a lot of pace is the high speed corners, like
Hmm.
Cops and um it doesn't matter right
Maggots
now.
and
But
Beckett's.
yes, thank you. But yeah, so Ferraris and Mercedes about like a tenth or 3/10 off each other, and then the Red Bulls and McLarens were the next kind of bracket down. They were about 4/10 to 6/10 off the pace in that Q3, in that last lap Q3, where that's in most cases the most that the drivers and the cars have. So I thought it was interesting. The Red Bulls and McLarens lacking a little bit of pace, just fractionally, but it's enough for a couple of points paying positions in that regard. But yeah, just in looking at the data, raw pace right now, Ferraris and the Mercedes seem to be about like 2.5 tenths to 3/10 off each other.
Yeah, and it definitely seemed like some of the teams were having some just technical issues kind of throughout the weekend as well, which I think can come into to play with some of that. But at a circuit like this, yeah, it seems like the Mercedes and Ferrari are the kind of all around top cars at the moment, combining that aero package and the engines. Um, Making it a really tough fight at the front and kind of uh, making it a little bit more exciting in this championship fight as well to see that they are that close together with a lot of seasons still to go. Um, so yeah, it was definitely fun watching the qualifying sessions, seeing how they panned out, and Kimi Antonelli had some really really strong pace there to take pole for the Grand Prix.
Yeah, too bad we're still in a, just a little bit of a reliability concern period for all of the cars, so no problem. I'm curious though that, can move us right along into the main Grand Prix, where we can dive a little bit deeper on some of these topics. Aaron, I'm curious, who are your winners here for the weekend?
So I'll start off with my first winner, being Charles Leclerc. He ends up getting the Grand Prix win. Um, First win of his since 2024, and he had a really strong drive. He, of course, benefits from Kimi Antonelli having a car issue and everything to retake P1 in the race, but throughout, he looked really good. He didn't make any mistakes. And he set himself up to take advantage of that opportunity when Kimi had the technical issue with the car. So very impressive drive from Leclerc, and I'm happy to see him show his pace, just like we saw with Lewis, picking up a couple of wins here for Ferrari, and in exciting that championship battle for the constructors.
Yeah, I think Charles Leclerc is a great shout. Not sure I would have anything to add. Yeah, great Sunday in that regard. And if I understand some of his career correctly, he's had like a bunch of opportunities to win Silverstone, but hasn't always been able to clinch. So finally, he was able to take a solid qualifying position and convert that to a dub.
Yeah, so not the best luck at Silverstone. I think he's gone out due to some technical issues with car before. I think he's had his own share of incidents as well. And but had opportunities to lead and has looked very strong at different instances. So a good one for him to check off the list there, for his ninth career win.
So, and then for my winner, driver anyway. Real recognize real, I suppose. Juan Pablo, I'm gonna make fun of you a little bit later, so no worries. Or maybe I didn't do it. Oh, hold up, because his son is in. Oh my
We
gosh,
missed
where
it.
is
He's
it?
in Formula Two.
Yeah, dude, because his son crashed out this weekend. This previous, there it is. Okay, it was in the feature race of the. It was in the feature race of the Formula Two weekend. So his son, I'm just derailing this. I have to say it.
That's okay.
So his son crashes into driver's last name is Bennett. So they take themselves out. Young Montoya, I believe his name is Sebastian. Sebastian gets his car back to the grid, and there is just Juan Pablo Montoya standing like deep to his son's car. Like I would argue, like in the way of the pit crew. He doesn't have like any. He doesn't have like the vest on. He doesn't have like a wristband or a necklace or anything. My boy JPM is just standing there, just like look. He's just like looking. He's just looking at his son's car, just like wondering what went wrong. And seeing him like pop into frame during the race, I was laughing. I was laughing so hard. I'm like, that's big
Well,
dad energy from JPM right there.
yeah, and dressed like exactly the same as he is when he's on the broadcast and everything too.
Hey, he's just in a t-shirt.
I wouldn't be surprised if he, and I'd have to look into it, but I would imagine he is his son's manager for as he's coming
Yes.
up through and all. But still, like you said, he was like ready to change a tire. Like
Yes.
he's out
Yes.
there just like give him the wheel gun, and he's right there. You got an extra hand on deck, but yeah, I did catch that as well. I was like, it was like a jump scare almost for a second when he came into frame.
Totally nailed it. I'm so happy that you saw that as well, because now I don't look so silly, just like totally cutting it in reverse. But the reason I brought up Juan Pablo Montoya is because he had the angle in the weekend. He predicted Isak Hadjar to qualify over Max, and then his future sight was again rewarded. With the Isak finishing ahead of Max. we unfortunately that it had to happen the way that it did. But at least the qualifying note was correct. And
Yeah,
honestly, like
and
that's
it
my winner
was.
on.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and that's my winner on the weekend is Isak Hadjar. Like I think he is just doing so well, just a in a vacuum for himself as a young driver in in a team, but also from the lens of the second Red Bull seat. I mean, he is P8 right behind his teammate. He's only 24 points off. That's really not bad. And this weekend I think was really strong from Isak. Each session, like the qualifying sessions and the races as well. So yeah, in Formula One, I just think Isak keeps getting better and better. So that's why Hadjar is my like driver winner here.
Yeah, and that's a great shout. What I was gonna so rudely interrupt and chime in was that he not only qualified ahead of Max, but he was faster than Max in each of the qualifying sessions for the Grand Prix qualifying. So he was consistently putting in those times. He didn't just sneak in Q1 or anything like that behind Max. He was looking really consistent and strong throughout that qualifying. And so yeah, great shout for Isak there. My other winner here on the weekend was Audi because I have shit talked them so much about not taking advantage of these opportunities to pick up points. And they were able to go ahead and do that today or yesterday at Silverstone with Gabriele Bortoleto picking up the P8 in the Grand Prix, getting 4 points for the team after Hulkenberg had. What did I say? You were looking like.
I'm just laughing at like the like
Oh,
yesterday for you, today for us. That
gotcha. Okay.
that
I
type of
thought
angle.
I was like the second guess. I was like, did I say Gabriele Mini or something instead of Bordeaux?
I didn't
But
say anything. Why'd you stop?
you made a face, and I thought there was something coming in, or I
Brutal.
said something. So
Continue. So
derailing
Audi was doing
myself.
well.
But yeah, Audi picking up some points when they had the opportunity of some of these front runners struggling with Piastri being out of the points. Verstappen DNFing Antonelli with his post race penalty or post, yeah, I guess it was post race penalty, post safety car penalty. Um, but yeah, Audi is my second winner here on the weekend.
That's fair. Yeah, dude, just hearing Kimmy just be like, "I'm gonna go for it, mate," like just on some anime shit, dude.
I
Like
wanted it
going
so bad.
going so hard for like 2 points or something like this. I'm like, I full respect to the kid, full respect. But and here's another lens where I'm kind of laughing is my team winner here might be at odds. You may disagree. So my winner here is Ferrari. I think this is just hands down the best weekend that they've had. Just kind of period. Because even in the race that Lewis Hamilton won, if you remember, like Charles Leclerc was, well, we don't have to talk about it. But so I think this is Ferrari's just wholesale just best weekend overall. I think it felt like their car was really set up for the circuit specifically.
Mm.
Lewis had much more pace, specifically going into cops, and he used that well to his advantage. I think he had a really good understanding of the car and where he was strong on track, so that was great. Double podium in the race. And then, as well as both drivers had good results in the sprint as well. Lewis Hamilton was the one of the stars of Saturday. Lewis Hamilton on the podium for both events and was the main contender to Kimi Antonelli's pace. Where, I mean, let's like that's kind of something. Not many
Yeah.
people can you know be at that kid's level. Each weekend or in each session of a weekend. So I think Lewis really fighting with Kimi Antonelli in some ways, I think is standing out in my mind. And then the performance overall on the weekend, they take a 20-point bite out of the Mercedes lead in the championship. And that's huge. Where I think previously some people were like, are we just in a runaway year for Mercedes? I just don't think that's the case right now. This was the type of weekend where you're just if you weren't paying attention to the Ferrari drivers and cars, I think you have to now because it wasn't
Yeah.
they weren't handed this in really any regard. And so that's why I chose them.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you on that actually. There's a lot of positives with Ferrari, and I think that this has definitely kind of spiced up that constructors battle. They're 78 points back now. A 20-point chunk in one weekend. I mean, 78 points, that's four race weekends if they are able to do that a few more times. Obviously, with Kimmy having his struggles in the Grand Prix and the issues, we'll see how that pans out. But there's a lot of racing left to go, and they're keeping themselves in the fight for sure. And so I definitely give some props for them. Um, Moving over to the losers, though, I'll start off with my kind of team, but this is just purely Ferrari strategy in regard to Lewis and pitting under the safety car. Like, I know that it's one of those extremely tough situations, so I'm not going to go and rail super hard on them for this. But track position when it is that late in the race, in my mind, is like the end all be all. Obviously, we know what happened in Abu Dhabi 2021 with someone on fresh tires with one lap to go. But in this kind of scenario where you don't know if the people behind you are going to pit, I don't think that Russell had the pit window behind him, even with the safety car, to necessarily take a free pit stop and come back out right behind Lewis on fresh tires. So pitting Lewis and then for him to come out in P3 by 2/10 of a second behind at the safety car line to end up behind George and then it just ending under safety car is a really rough way for the strategy to go after like you highlighted a really strong weekend.
Here's my cope for you though. I If the podium would have been compromised, I doubt they pit him. I think it was strictly in thinking about George Russell, but I have a feeling if the podium would have been compromised in total, I don't think they pit. Because overall I agree with you, track position is just king.
Hmm.
Especially if it's gonna end under safety car.
Yeah, and I mean, they basically just like gave 3 points away because of it ending under safety
Right.
car. Like he could have just driven on those old tires through the safety car the whole time, and it would have been perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, so that's where it's just like it's just a tough position to be in for the team. Like they are expecting it to come back to racing, so they're trying to give him the best opportunity for that to happen. It doesn't pan out that way, and so when there's so few laps to go, it is a really tough spot to be in. However, it's tough to feel like you just threw away 3 points for no reason when that's how things end up panning out. But yeah, like I said, I'm not gonna criticize too heavily. It's just kind of a bummer that that's how it pans out.
Yeah, that's totally fair. As we've seen though, those in the minute or like in the second, kind of pit wall decision, those can be tough to nail. As a McLaren fan, I'm well used to this stuff happening. So maybe I'm just a little more forgiving. I kind of know how it feels. But yeah, the team that I feel like is struggling. And the reason I bring them up here today is because they're a team that I've brought up recently as a team that's making a push or a strong consideration for P5 in the fight. So it's Team Alpine right now. I think their fight is primarily with Racing Bulls. It doesn't seem like they're going to be able to close the gap unless something like crazy happens. So if you just are looking at Alpine in the lens of how are they doing in the fight for fifth, well, they've kind of stagnated a little bit. And if you look at both Austria results and Great Britain results kind of back to back, the RB versus Alpine kind of conversation. It's less of a conversation and more of just the upward trajectory of one team and the stagnation of the other. So yeah, I'll be very interested to see if post this uh I'm sorry, I'm looking for the word, post this European summer, because it sounds like what they're struggling on is just pure pace. They feel like their car's in a good position. They just need more power, more oomph. So that's where their development will be focused, and this is coming out of the Alpine team as well. So yeah, in that fight for fifth against the Racing Bulls, who with Lawson and Lindblad have been looking very strong. We talked about them last time out at Austria. Yeah, Alpine is going to be remiss to get those points back.
Yeah. And after the Racing Bulls pick up a P6 and P7 plus a point in the sprint race with Lawson, that gap in the constructor standings has shrunk to 1 point very, very quickly. After just 3 races ago, probably I would have looked at it and been like, oh yeah, Alpine's like far and away that best of the rest team and everything, and now it is quickly become a pretty big fight there between the Racing Bulls and Alpine.
And just like a little bit of context, this is coming towards the end of basically like the first development stint. We've seen a
Mm.
bunch of teams bring additions slash upgrades to their cars. So we're in that first round of development. Teams are basically trying to like work on slash figure out their new packages and or optimize. So I think Alpine has every opportunity to, kickstart, get some more results. But just looking at it from this point of the European summer, that's just kind of the angle that I'm coming out with the Alpine. But I want to kick it back to you for your driver who you think didn't do so hot.
Yeah, and so it's Max, and it's just really unfortunate to see him have the same kind of issue, especially back to back race weekends with the rear wing not closing properly, causing him to lose the car, especially going from P3 position. He's on the podium, he's battling and looked to have decent pace, not quite as good as the Ferraris and the Mercedes, but he was hanging. And so the heartbreak of seeing yellow flag and then just like a cloud of dust, and they're like see Max's name come up before you can see the car. I was just like, what happened? And so for the same issue to happen again, that's kind of what Max's reaction was. He's like, for if this happens once, okay, like, but it is a pretty serious, like, it caused him to crash. Like, it's becoming a safety issue that this has now occurred another time at a high speed corner. Causing him to lose the car and everything. So I can understand his frustration from his post race interviews and everything, but really really tough when I'm like excited. He's doing well. He's picking up points. He's closing in on those McLarens in the driver's standings to uh, get in the mix a little bit, and then just to lose out on all those points is a tough pill to swallow.
I imagine he felt similar.
Yeah. So that's why I have him for my driver who lost out this weekend.
That's totally fair. And in a similar vein, that's why I chose Kimi Antonelli as mine. It's the obvious answer. Kid is just on form all weekend, but on Sunday runs into it's basically just a series of unfortunate events for young Kimi Antonelli. Bad start into mechanical issue into pit crew kind of overlooks the situation. You see, there is a pit member who is very aware of what the problem is, and you can see during Kimmy's first pit stop, they do try and address it. They do try and address the problem. They don't fully address it, which is why it's just the comedy of pit stops then for Kimi Antonelli's race. So you get the pit crew overlooking the solution. The reason I bring that up here is just because my fan brain wonders, like, damn, like, could they have called it then and made it a one stop fix, get him going? Can we at least get some points? That's like what my fan brain says. So that's why I bring it up. I have a feeling, honestly, I mean, I don't think that was going to be the case. It seemed like, and Kimmy was saying on the on the radio, it's fundamental, mate. It just
Yeah.
seemed like a bigger problem. And then, so it's not only that, he's he's in a position. We're still in the points. We're still alive. And then penalties applied. Bono's on the radio, like, just give it up, mate. Like, it's over. And Kimmy says, I'm going for it. He said, I'm going for it, bud. So yeah, if you're a Kimi Antonelli fan, just a really tough one. And now here's where, again, my fan brain is going to kick in. Man, if Mercedes loses this championship due to, like, it's straight up mechanical and reliability right now. That's what
Yeah.
they're fighting. They're just fighting the innards of the car right now because they have two drivers that are ready to win. George Russell is about to pop. He's so excited for a championship win. And Kimi Antonelli, he is what seems to be one of the strongest drivers in the fight for just the 2026 championship. That's all I'm going to say about it. Kimmy seems like he is one of the main contenders. So if they're just going to just race in, race out, just, oh, Kimmy, sorry, just another DNF for you. Oh, man, is that going to be a really lame way for Mercedes to just peter out of what should be just a dominant comeback to form where everybody is just chanting Mercedes at the end of the year. If this just becomes a reliability mechanical like farce of a year, man.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like they're already talking about and so this is like an interesting side note that I haven't really talked about much, but with the engine upgrades that are available, Mercedes has actually elected, and they're the closest to Red Bull with the engine power per the FIA's testing and all. They have elected not to use their upgrade tokens or whatever this year to improve their engine because they're already in the fight. They then will not overtake Red Bull and give Red Bull an opportunity to upgrade their engine. So they're kind of doing that strategically, but also to focus on this reliability and the issues that they're having. Like Kimmy just ran over a curb and part of his wheel protector shield just snapped. Like it was there. He didn't hit anything. A rock didn't get kicked up like Nico Hulkenberg had at him the other race or anything crazy. It just looked like he hit some bumps, it snapped, and all of a sudden the car was like next to undrivable until they figured out getting that piece just like ripped off the car the second time they pitted. Um, so yeah, it is interesting, but also in the same vein, we've seen George Russell have his fair share of bad luck and struggles early on in the season. So this is one of those things where it's like you do have to have some luck potentially to win a championship in Formula One. And even though Kimmy's had his bad luck, when he hasn't, he's been dominating. He's been so good. So from George's side, he needs to be able to do that same thing when he has these opportunities to pick up points. And of course, taking P2, like that's a huge bag of points to pick up on Kimmy on the race weekend. But um, you need a little bit more because Kimmy's getting the P1s when he's in those positions. So
And that's like a really interesting angle because I really thought about like, okay, so like is would George Russell be in contention for like for a winners for this weekend? And my little thought bubble comes up, and I begin dreaming about the race week, and I was like, no man, he got wrecked. His qualifying sessions were awful. All of his like wheel to wheel racing, he gets chumped by Max twice. First time Max overtakes him and then just dives into the pit, which is
hilarious.
hilarious. Like there's not many ways that you can style on somebody, in racing. That
Yeah.
feels like one of them though. And that was hilarious. So he loses to Max, and then he loses to Max again and immediately just like folds into the pit, which it's just the other side of that coin, and it's just as funny. So that's twice against Max, and then Lewis bodies him in
Yeah.
in their wheel to wheel. So it's like, man, he's not even looking good on track. So in some
Mm.
ways, it's like, yeah, man, his competition all just like crashed or had reliability issues. He walked onto a podium. If there was ever a time for the George Russell in the in the Woody where it's like does nothing, like P3, like that type of thing, it's
Mm.
exactly that type of race for George.
Yeah, and when I was thinking about him, like as a potential winner as well, like he did win out in terms of picking up those points in the battle. But
But
I
that's the
would
only
say
lens.
it's really like who was the luckiest driver of the weekend,
Right.
and it's George. He hung in there and like did what he could, but he doesn't seem to quite have the juice at Silverstone. This is his first podium that he's had there, but along with that, he just hasn't had super strong performances. Um, Even with Mercedes, and obviously they were not the front running car over the past couple of years, but there's still I think were opportunities for him to have some good performances, and it just doesn't quite seem like it's his spot. But picking up the P2, I mean, it it makes the championship battle more interesting. But again, yeah, I think it was a little bit more due to some of these other drivers having issues, and him kind of lucking out with even with Lewis pitting and him getting the P2 just for no reason at the end. Like he could have just been P3 and picked up 15 points instead of 18.
Hey man, he T-posed at the foot of his bed and he fell back and he was like, "Man, I did good today."
Honestly, that sounds kind of fun to just T-pose and just boom. I I would do it.
Sure, but the reality of the situation is then while you're George Russell and it's like, well, take
Well,
your pick.
he's just doing it into a Mercedes race car bed versus that's how he ends
Hell
his
yeah.
day. Um,
Hell yeah, dude. That's awesome.
but yeah, I think the other kind of notes that I had from the weekend, we've talked about the majority of it. The safety car not ending like was just kind of a bummer, and so I just wanted to pick your brain in that kind of situation. Obviously, I think they assumed that they could clear the car quick enough to go racing for a last lap, but you have like 4 or 5 laps to go. Like, isn't it? Do you think it's worth red flagging that to restart, or are you okay with just seeing how they do and it potentially ending under safety car like it did this weekend?
I think he crashed on lap I think it was lap 48. So basically the next lap is 49. Now so you have 4 laps left, like 4 good laps left.
So you got to 46. So 6 to go when Max crashed.
Okay, 6 to go. Okay, gotcha. I
So
mean,
there is some leeway that like the car probably takes about 2 laps to get cleared off the circuit, and
mhm.
then like there was some wiggle room there, but yeah, I'm just curious. Like, I don't have the answer. Like, I feel like it's so close that it's a tough decision. But I wasn't sure if you had any strong feelings on like, yeah, red flag it, let him go racing for 6 laps. Everyone's on fresh tires, and you see him duke it out, or um, yeah, we try to let it ride.
Yeah, it's weird. Like I don't know. I feel like yeah, when I see a driver crash late in the race, I think my brain is just like, okay, well it's done now. So
Yeah,
like so I guess in some ways I wasn't surprised that they weren't able to go racing again. So in that way it's like, hey, whatever. But what is funny is that it's because we can't get phone calls right that some of this stuff is happening, or it's like you get what I'm saying. So it's like
yeah,
that's the angle that I find silly. It's like, hey, if you can't end every race under racing conditions, that's fine. You tried, you did your best, you utilized the protocols in place, all good. You did your
okay.
best. But it's when it's these things of like, well, the marshal called and it was weird. He was speaking Italian. I didn't get the message. Like
Yeah.
that's what these FIA calls effectively are coming down to, and I'm just like, well, that's silly, isn't it?
Yeah, because all that happened essentially was they didn't let the back markers overtake prior to Leclerc crossing the start line on the last lap. Or like
Sure, like it should have
it
been
should
like
have
a
been,
lap
if they had done
before.
it like 10 seconds sooner, then it would have panned out. But they have to give the
Gotcha.
full like lap for everyone to go running around scurrying back to the back of the grid. Another kind of funny thing with that, Carlos Sainz, just as a side note, picks up a 1 lap post race penalty because he was not supposed to unlap himself. He was on the lead lap and he went and unlapped himself. So
Right.
technically, Carlos Sainz won before his 1 lap penalty at the end of the race here.
Oh, he was like positioned first on
I
track.
think because I think technically he ends up crossing first because he unlapped himself when he wasn't supposed to, so he went past Leclerc and all the lead cars. So
Hilarious. Get
yeah,
wrecked, Charles. Get
yeah.
absolutely
Carlos
wrecked.
Sainz just stealing your thunder.
Yeah. No, like honestly, like
Yeah,
that is just the FIA. That is just
yeah.
Formula One.
Yep. And so and I think that's a pretty tempered opinion on it. I saw like hearing on the broadcast how they were like frustrated by the situation, and oh, we should always try to be like finishing under green flag racing and
Yeah, and
like
I think they
racing
did.
conditions on. It's like, yeah, exactly. Like this is part of racing. It's not the best for the spectacle. It's not like the fans at the Grand Prix probably would want to see them like battling it out at the end there. But sometimes that's how racing goes. Like it just it is what it is.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. So yeah, I apologize. I don't have some type of hot take, but
Oh,
yeah,
sorry. I was
maybe the
just
hot take is
curious.
just sometimes the FIA is just your cousin Larry. That's just how it works.
Yeah. So I no, I think that's fair. I just saw a lot of frustration, I think especially online about how it finished, and then hearing the like Coulthard and Palmer talking on the broadcast. They both seemed like pretty frustrated with it as well, but yeah, at the end of the day, that's just sometimes how it pans out. The like one of the few other notes I had, I did want to talk about. Did you see the Aston Martin and how they were having to wrench that car around the track?
Yeah, I did see the Aston Martin on boards and just looks like a nightmare to drive. Yeah, that's for sure.
It's just mind-boggling, and so I'm definitely keeping an eye out for their upcoming upgrades that they have planned. I think those are coming at Hungary. I forget exactly which weekend they had mentioned, but I think it might be there right before the summer break. Um, but yeah, that car just looks like a monster to try and keep control of, and so I am gonna give Lance a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt when he's just like, "Yeah, I'm fine, DNFing, get me out of this thing." Like, I that does not look fun to drive at all.
Yeah, it's a really tough position. I agree. Yeah, maybe just saying I hope it gets better for them is just like the most reasonable thing to say. But yeah, to your point, like you said, those onboards they did look horrible. So whatever.
Just brutal. But yeah, any other notes that you had here from the race weekend?
This is where I'll throw this in, and I'll kind of pick up on the Aston Martin angle. I think as a way to frame the season in my mind, because there's a long stretch in the beginning of a season that I've learned where it's like it's pretty amorphous for a while. You
Yeah.
need you need like a bunch of results before you have an idea of like kind of like what's happening. You can see what happened, but what is happening? So, one of these maybe just formulations, some ideas or narratives of the season are coalescing would be a good word to use. Um I think Cadillac will just get a pass from me. I'm always going to just try and find a good angle for Cadillac. There's no reason to be critical of them when like Williams and Aston Martin exist currently in
Yeah.
our sport.
No,
So
100%.
from that angle, I think at least this year and likely next year, I'm going to say, hey, this is a new team developing into Formula One. This is just going to be cool to see. They've got a couple of fun drivers. Let's just see what they can do from that angle. P14 and P16 in a weekend where they weren't the last finishers, that's for sure. That's like really good development, so I'm happy to see it. And this is why we said like the reason I'm having that reframe is because yeah, Aston Martin and Williams are just on the grid as well, and they look much worse than this team that like hasn't been here before, and they've been here for a decent while. So seeing them struggle so much, it's making me like reframe how I'm like thinking about the bottom of the grid, because I think in some ways I just lump them all together. They all become gray, and I just kind of stop thinking about them. But it's like, well, maybe there's some a little bit of nuance like worth having. But yeah, it's weird where it's like, okay, Cadillac, I'm gonna remove them, and it's Aston Martin and Williams are in this weird layer of like you have so much racing pedigree and time in the sport. It's weird to see you struggling in the ways that you are just due to new regulations. So I'm curious on your thoughts on that.
No, I agree with you. I was trying to look through and I was looking particularly for like my losers portion, and I was like, I can't even talk about any of these guys. Like I can't talk about the Williams. The car is still probably not at the minimum weight. They can barely bring upgrades until they do that. Like the Aston Martins have already said they're waiting to do like basically drop a whole new car
Right.
at some point in the early or midpoint of the season at this point. But what was mind-boggling to me was the gap from the Cadillacs to the Aston Martins in qualifying. Like they're the Aston Martins are qualifying a second and a half behind the Cadillacs. Like, I get that one lap pace is not the end all be all, but like they are falling off the back of the grid right now. And it's almost like, why are we having them go rate? Like, is the 3% rule gonna start coming into play at some point? Because they are just getting like gapped by a brand new team. And obviously Cadillac is still a professional outfit. They've brought some upgrades to the car, so maybe when the Aston Martin brings this update, it'll be great and wonderful and all. But they talked about that picking them up 2.5 seconds or so a lap when they do that. They put in a 132.863 and a 133.025 for their qualifying times. The final top times of or the top times of that sessions were 129.5s. Like, even in that first session, that doesn't get that the gap to make it out of Q1 was 3 seconds away. If you're gaining 2.5 seconds, you're still not getting out of Q1. So there's definitely um, a lot to keep an eye on, but it is hard to have conversations about where they're at when, especially for them, they aren't making any changes. They're just on the pain train until the new car comes.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of the pain train, and this was the other team in that conversation, is Williams is third worst, it looks like, on pace. The points don't show it yet, but in 1 to 2 races, they will drop. They will be P8
Nine.
or 9, thank you. Yeah, I can't
Yeah.
do quick maths. So they
Extra
will
team on the grid.
be, yeah, effectively, and it's so funny where it's like, yeah, it's great to have some data into the season where you would go back and you would say, hey, Tired Boys, the angle here isn't like why should Cadillac be on the grid? It's why does Aston Martin have to stay if Cadillac's joining, right? Like that'd be the angle from end of 24.
Yeah.
So yeah, really interesting to just see how this new development, this new like regulation set is just walloping these teams, walloping them.
Yeah.
Even Haas, 2 seconds down in qualifying off the top times, which was Kimi Antonelli, and then they finish out of the points and they're 50 seconds back from the end
Yeah.
of the race. It's like these teams are getting walloped.
Yeah. And it's the biggest regulation change that we've ever had in Formula One, both aerodynamically and engine wise. So there's gonna be hiccups. I just didn't expect it to be this drastic in some of these teams' instances. Um, but yeah, it's tough to understand. I think how some of these more legacy teams to some extent, or teams that have been around for a little bit, are in such a tough spot at the moment, and especially with like veteran drivers on both squads that are trying to get as much data, are really like they're doing a decent job of getting laps in and not DNFing as much as possible, but the cars just are tough at the moment. So I definitely am waiting to see how some of the upgrades and things come through across the season, but it is starting to make me just look towards next year to some extent for these teams to be getting like into a competitive position to potentially get points. Like Cadillac right now, I'll be popping the champagne if they get points this season, but they are looking more likely to do it than some of these other teams here. Like you said, I think it was P14 and 16. Like they're a crazy they're a chaos race away from some points. And in the team standings, they could easily just jump Aston Martin, and if something really crazy happens, Williams is not that far out of reach.
I want to make a new bingo card and put Cadillac gets a point on it. That was a missed opportunity. I leaned into too many unwinnable angles, and yeah, that's one that I would love to get on my bingo card. But yeah, it's just so odd. To your point about the caliber of drivers, it is really unfortunate to see like Albon and Sainz just rotting on that team. I mean, Sainz was somebody who like he was a main fixture of our show for
Mm-hmm.
years, like literal years.
Yeah. And after
And
last
now
season too, like
we just don't get to talk about him at all.
they had a solid season last year. They made progress throughout the year and were picking up points and all. And so it's definitely disappointing. But hopefully they can get in the mix a little bit more, or at least like put some exciting races together where they're able to have some battles and not just be kind of out there in no man's land.
For sure. Last team that I just had that I would have some like meaningful additions to comment on is just the McLaren weekend. A bit up and down. Lando getting I'll say it like this: Lando had a better weekend than Piastri, definitely, both
Yeah.
in the sprint and the race. We see in the race, unfortunately, Piastri takes big damage from what ends up being a small moment, pretty small mistake early in the main race, has huge implications for the rest of his day. He just spends his whole Sunday working back from P20, just trying to get as much back as he can. Ends up doing admirably. I think he had a fine Sunday in that regard, but man, he would, he'd be wanting that start back, that's for sure. So yeah, McLaren's probably would have wanted a bit better on the weekend. They can still push Ferrari for the championship, but I think we're in a very, very key moment of their hunt where we need some strong results from both Spa and Hungary from McLaren, or else we're going to fall adrift from Ferrari, and it's about to be just a two-car race for the constructors championship. So yeah, I think McLaren, we need to scoop up some big points fast, and or yeah, we're going to be hurting going into the summer break.
Yeah, I could very easily see it becoming a like Mercedes Ferrari battle for P1 and 2 and McLaren and Red Bull for 3 and 4 if they don't pick up some solid points or close the gap a little bit before too long. I just unfortunately don't feel like the McLaren recently, at least with the other teams bringing upgrades and all, has looked like a car that could win a race without something crazy happening. Like the Red Bull has had its instances over the past couple weekends where I'm like, okay, there's a glimmer here or there, but outside of that, it's really just who between that Ferrari and Mercedes squad are going to get race wins. And that just makes it really tough for McLaren. Even if you're picking up a P3 and a P4, you're still probably losing out on points to Ferrari and Mercedes if they get that P1 and 2 for their squad. So it's not out of reach yet. A lot of racing to go, but they haven't quite had that little twinkle that I feel like they can make that big push so far. They've also been extremely successful at bringing upgrades that have worked quickly and propelled them up. So if they can continue to develop the car, there's definitely that opportunity there.
Definitely agree in that regard. Any other teams that you want to hit on before we move along?
I don't think so. I think we covered everyone at least a little bit at this point. So that does round out the British Grand Prix here for the sprint race. We had Kimi Antonelli P1, Lewis Hamilton P2, Lando Norris rounding out the podium in P3. And then for the Grand Prix, we had Charles Leclerc P1, George Russell P2, and Lewis Hamilton wrapping up the podium there in P3. So yeah, pretty exciting, and I thought the British Grand Prix was an exciting race overall. There were definitely some moments that were um, less than exciting, like finishing under safety car, but there was plenty of action throughout the race weekend to keep us entertained here. Um, but yeah, that was the British Grand Prix. Next up, we have the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa Francorchamps. And so we'll have the hot seat episode here for the upcoming race.
And this was a fun one to put together. So Aaron, we'll see how you can do here for the hot seat going into the Belgian Grand Prix. I've got 3 questions for you, one bonus question as well. We got multiple choice answers, so we'll see how well Aaron knows the Belgian Grand Prix. Aaron, are you ready for the hot seat?
Yep, let's do it.
Very cool. Okay, so question number 1. Historically, Spa is a circuit that sees quite changeable conditions during a race weekend. How many years in a row did it rain for at the Belgian Grand Prix? Was it A, 10? Was it B, 15? Or was it C, 20?
And so this is the longest stretch of consecutive races with rain. Oh gosh, I'm just gonna go C20 because it seems to happen so much.
You are correct. It is 20 years. Just one of the historically wettest races overall. Question number 2. A circuit that dates back to the 1920s is going to have many winners over the years, but which of these constructors has won the most at the Belgian Grand Prix with 18? Is it A, McLaren? Is it B, Ferrari? Or is it C, Lotus?
Ooh, that's I'm gonna go B Ferrari.
You are correct, sir. It
Okay.
is Ferrari with 18 victories. And then question number 3. This is a bit of a silly one, but I love it. This is the year the Belgian Grand Prix was not held due to tobacco advertising laws. Was this A, 1999? Was it B, 2003? Or was it C, 2010?
I will go with 1999.
Yeah, yeah. That was the dummy one. That is incorrect. It's 2003.
Ah,
Yeah, you,
I
you feel like
just
90s
figuring
is
out
like the cigarette era.
yeah, I'm a little surprised that the cars were still rocking the SIGs in '03, but um yeah, I guess there were still plenty of people chiefing on cigarettes at the time.
Oh yeah, I'm sure the Marlboro, McLaren car, that was probably still going strong in that regard. Okay, no worries. We still have 2 points available
Oh,
in the Nope, that one's just for me. Never mind. We have 1 point available in the bonus. Okay, so the municipality of Spa is depicted in which Stanley Kubrick film? Is it A, Barry Lyndon? Is it B, Paths of Glory? Or is it C, Full Metal Jacket?
I'll go C, Full Metal Jacket.
Incorrect. It is Barry Lyndon. I
Okay.
was hoping a little bit of osmosis would have come through. But interestingly, Spa doesn't even get to play Spa in the Stanley Kubrick film. He actually uses a castle in Scotland known as Dunrobin Castle. He uses that for the exterior and interior shots that he depicts as Spa. So unfortunately, it doesn't even get to play itself, but the region is in the film, so I just thought that was a funny one.
I
We'll tie. will
Yeah,
tie into my flavor of the week.
I should have known that because I shouldn't have. Full Metal Jacket, I just put in the wrong era. I was like, war movie, Europe, must be World War II. But then as soon as I thought about it, I'm like, no, that definitely was not a World War II movie. Um, so yeah, 2 from 3. Not the worst, not my best, but we have another fun hot seat episode here. So let us know how you guys did in the comments. We appreciate you guys playing along and trying to beat me week to week.
Doesn't seem like it's an impossible task. I'll just say it like that.
That's I'm leaving the door open for everyone. It's
There
the
we go.
kindness of my heart.
Very nice. But Aaron, I'm curious. Thank you very much for enduring the hot seat. Aaron, I'm curious. What was your flavor of the week here?
Yeah, so for the flavor of the week here, my food, Colleen and I just ended up having oysters on back-to-back days, which we really enjoy. We love to do them all up with the mignonette and the hot sauce, some horseradish and everything. So we'd gotten dinner with her family, with her parents and uncle, and the restaurant had some oysters. So we're like, yeah, let's go for it. And then we were down at the shore for the 4th of July weekend and ended up finding a good happy hour deal to get some more oysters as well. So that is one of our favorite luxuries to spoil ourselves every now and again. Um, so a solid one for this week. My music, Colleen and I were driving back, so we went to Delaware and we were driving our way home, and it was stormy weather. We're seeing fireworks, we're seeing lightning, downpouring buckets of rain. But Colleen kind of made it entertaining. She went through and put together a little queue of songs that all were either like kind of 4th of July, like you'd hear it at a barbecue, or songs with US state or city names in them from like all over the country. So kind of mixing it up from Texas to California to Illinois and all as we were driving home. So I thought that was pretty fun, and it was impressive to me her just musical knowledge of all these different songs that she can just go and pull into a playlist. It was very impressive. My brain is not like that with music.
Yeah, but I'm guessing Albuquerque was not on that playlist.
Um no, we did have Santa Fe, New Mexico in one. I don't think Albuquerque made the cut.
Damn, damn. Best song ever written, IMO. So yeah, bit heartbroken
But
on that one.
sorry, I'll have to get the playlist together and send it over. But for my visual medium to wrap out the cooldown lap here, I've been enjoying the first couple episodes of House of Dragons. That is back on HBO, the prequel to the Game of Thrones story. There's been a lot of good action and excitement. This is definitely a pretty heavy conflict part of the storyline, and so it is. I'm kind of interested to see where it goes because there are some things that have moved way quicker this season than I expected, and so I'm like, all right, where's the next twist coming from? But I have been enjoying that quite a bit, and that's my visual medium and flavor of the week.
Very cool. Is House of Dragons as let's say uh parental advisory? Yeah, does it have a parental advisory sticker in that regard?
Yeah, there's some moments. Not as many as early Game of Thrones, but there's still definitely some moments that I would say get it the R-rated sticker slapped on the DVD box.
Gotcha. Well, glad it hasn't lost its spirit then in you know in that. All right, so my cooldown lap here, my flavor of the week. So I've got a track here for you that is on the Forza Horizon 6 soundtrack that is just killer. every time I've got the wheel, I put a call in to DJ Escrow on the radio, and I say, "Hey man," I say, "bump that Tame Impala. I gotta hear that Dracula." And he says, "Yo, Otter, I got you, bud." And he says, "Shout out," and he plays my Tame Impala song. So it's
This,
like electro pop from last year. I'm not like a huge Tame Impala fan, but it is the best song that I've heard on that Horizons soundtrack by far, and it's like one of the funnest songs to cruise around to. So I definitely enjoy that track. My
you'll
food
have to
here.
check out the version that has Jenny on it. If you haven't yet, there's a remix with Jenny from I think it was Blackpink, one of the K-pop groups, who she was in White Lotus this past season, and then has done some like solo music. But I like the version with her on it even better than the original.
Well, that's
And the
exciting.
original is really good. I've enjoyed it quite a bit.
So you
I
know
do.
that song. That's great, and you've even given me something else. So that's wonderful. Yeah, because I kind of turned up my nose at that one. I was like, well, that's not the version I know,
Oh
but
yeah,
maybe I'll
I
have to check it out. That's great.
both solid though. So
Oh
if you
yeah.
like the original better, I won't be offended.
Well, I'm definitely gonna take a look. That's great. My food here, I've got some locally made tortilla chips. Like small bag, way too expensive, but man, are they really good? They're like puffy in some important way. They're like well seasoned. Man, yeah, it's like a gourmet tortilla chip or something. It's very tasty. And then my visual medium, as I said, we've been doing a Stanley Kubrick block for the movie group, so that's been really enjoyable. I've thrown in a few extra movies because lo and behold, I will tell you, I've had a Stanley Kubrick like little block together on my list just for myself for a long time. Like these movies have been on that list for like way too long and I never got around to them. So I'm using this movie group effort as a way to throw those films in there as well and really get a sense for this, behemoth of an American director. So that's been really fun. So that's my flavor of the week.
Very cool. Yeah, I still have a couple of the movies here to watch for the Stanley Kubrick. I can't talk here, so we're just gonna end the yeah, I definitely want to catch up with the movie club here and get to those movies for this week. But we do appreciate everyone for listening with us here for the British Grand Prix recap and review. It's always fun. So thank you so much for listening.
New episodes after every Formula One event. Next up is the Belgian Grand Prix. Tune in the Monday and Tuesday afterwards for new Tired Boys podcast episodes. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for spending your time with us. Peace out, everyone.
See ya.